Hello, my name is Michael Joyner, and in this video we will be discussing the ongoing trade war currently going on between the US and China, with our featured companies Google and Apple, and their current involvement in this situation. Trade, whether we are talking about importing or exporting goods, is extremely important for the US economy by powering economic growth, supporting respectable jobs at home, raising living standards, and helping Americans provide for their families with affordable goods and services. This trade war is presenting many problems among large and small scale companies trying to make logical business decisions to help maintain these benefits of trade. But with rising tariffs and conflict among world powers, it makes the current situation all the more difficult for business leaders worldwide. In this video, we will discuss these issues and give examples of how this conflict is affecting the global market, families at home and abroad, and backing these companies into a corner to make a decision to fight back or pack up and move on to a new location.
I'm Pamela Garner, and I wanted to give a little bit of background behind the U.S.-China trade war and talk about the reasons behind it. There's a lot of tension between the two countries right now, and there's many events leading up to and happening in conjunction with the current trade situation. There are allegations that Chinese organizations have been taking advantage of the U.S. for decades with unfair trade practices. These unfair practices have led to a significant imbalance of trade between the two countries. The trade deficit in 2018 was greater than $400 billion, which means that we buy a lot more of their products than they buy of ours. Perhaps the biggest controversy in the news today are claims that China is involved in the theft of intellectual property from U.S. tech companies. The Chinese company Huawei was placed on the entity list in May of this year, meaning that the U.S. government considers them a national security risk. Restrictions have been placed on U.S. companies doing business with Huawei. So all of these things are fueling the current trade dispute. The largest U.S. imports from China are computers and smartphones. Over the years, U.S. tech companies have been outsourcing product assembly to China due to the extremely low cost of labor and manufacturing, but the recent tariff situation is making this arrangement much less attractive. Both countries have been back and forth levying new and bigger tariffs on one another's products, and this puts the tech industry in an uncertain situation. With no end in sight for the trade war, tech companies will need to act quickly to respond to the changing legal political environment. They'll need to reevaluate their current operation and supply chain plans to mitigate extra costs associated with tariffs. Thank you.
Hi, this is Michelle Pineda. I will be explaining how the Google Corporation is handling the trade war between Washington and Beijing. To avoid the higher cost of Chinese labor and the continuing tariffs from the trade war, Google intends to move most of its production line outside of China as a long-term strategy to grow its smartphone market and its Android operating system. Now, with the help of a business partner, Google has already begun moving the production of the Pixel smartphone from China to northern Vietnam by converting an old Nokia factory. And it intends to hire the experienced workforce in the area who have already worked in smartphone production lines like Samsung. Google will still keep some of its production in China because it doesn't want to lose access to the large customer base, but they understand that due to rising costs and the need to stay competitive, they will have to move their production outside of China in order to support their hardware manufacturing business model. Their main goal is to help the expansion of its core software, data, and advertisement business for the Google Pixel production line and beyond. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Everett Nelson, and I'll be discussing how the trade war between the United States and China is affecting the company Apple. As of recently, Apple announced that it'll be moving its production of the new Mac Pro to a plant in Austin, Texas. This comes as somewhat of a surprise, as the company was originally predicted to manufacture its high-end computers by a corporation in China. More than likely, Apple did a SWOT analysis and observed that the move to the Austin plant was an organizational opportunity for them in the task environment, while the tariff exemption on its Mac Pro components was a strength that many other competitors did not have in the computer industry in the political legal environment. This can be considered either a programmed or non-programmed decision, depending on how you look at it. It could be considered non-programmed because this decision was a unique circumstance and a complete turnaround from their original plan to invest in a Chinese plant. It requires extensive single-use plans of programs or projects in order to set up and maintain the quality and production techniques that Apple is seeking. On the other hand, the decision may be more of a program decision, as the Austin plant has already handled production of previous Mac computers, so employees may already know the policies, standard operating procedures, rules, and regulations that Apple has set in place. This decision may also help in its marketing as well, as according to CNBC, Apple said the new Mac Pro models include over 2 times more American-made components than previous models. This can be considered some sort of internal self-set form of an export restraint agreement because they have tariff exemptions on Mac Pro components from China, yet choose to purchase resources from the United States. This may also be some sort of a focus strategy in which they are appealing to the American market by stating that a large portion of the parts in their products are American-made. Either way, this was an important and, in my opinion, beneficial decision for Apple. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Perry Ruby, and I'll be summarizing the conclusions of this presentation. First, the U.S. and China are and have been for quite some time in a trade war with each other, specifically focused towards the tech industry. China has historically lured U.S. companies manufacturing over to their country by offering extremely low labor rates and manufacturing rates that were just too good to ignore. This has caused a significant imbalance of trade and resulted in a trade deficit of more than $400 billion. There have also been some serious allegations that China has been involved in the theft of intellectual property from U.S. tech companies as well as citizens. For example, the Chinese company Huawei was placed on that list of entities that pose a national security risk, therefore restricting almost completely their ability to do business with the U.S. and other countries. The current climate is hostile at best, and the 2 companies that have been affected specifically are Apple and Google. Apple has had to rethink their strategic position, most likely using a SWOT analysis, and have recently begun to announce their plans to bring back manufacturing of goods such as the Mac Pro from China to the U.S. This is an example of focused strategy, knowing now that the trade war will continue for an undetermined amount of time. The same can be said of Google, with just a slight twist. They have made plans to move their production as well of the Pixel smartphone, for example, from China to Vietnam, but not completely, as they have a large customer base in China. Therefore, due to tariffs now being imposed on goods imported from China, to 2 very large U.S. companies, Apple and Google, have had to adjust their focused strategies in order to stay competitive and still satisfy their shareholders in various worldwide business ventures. Thank you.